For years, we've been told how important it is to be ourselves. So when we reach our 50s or 60s, why does the message suddenly become, it's time to reinvent yourself? I don't buy it. In fact, I think this whole idea of reinventing ourselves after 50 is nonsense, because I believe something far more transformational happens when we stop chasing some new and improved version of ourselves. In this video, I'm going to show you why I believe the midlife reinvention message can become another way of telling us that who we are now isn't enough, that somehow we need to become someone new in order to have the life we think we should have. And I'll share 3 ways to approach this stage of life that build on everything you already know about yourself, while still leaving plenty of room to explore, grow, and discover what else you might want for your life. Because you can do things you've never done before without reinventing who you are. If we haven't met, I'm Dee Sung, and this is Follow Your Lighthouse. I'm an experienced leadership coach guiding women in their second half of life as they navigate change and think about what they want now. Here, we have honest conversations about getting older, questioning some of the messages women are given about how we're supposed to do it, and trusting ourselves to find our own way forward. And I'm right here in this stage of life with you. Now, I want to make an important distinction here, because I'm not saying we shouldn't change as we get older. There's still a lot I want to do in my life. Some of it I know, and some of it I probably haven't even thought of yet. But I don't see any of that as reinventing myself. I see it as continuing to grow and live my life. And this is where the word reinvention matters. To reinvent something is to change it into something new. But why is new the goal? Why would I enter this stage of life focused on becoming someone new when I have decades of experience and wisdom to draw from? If this were only about semantics, I probably wouldn't care. But I think the language reveals something much bigger about what women are being told they need to do as they get older. That's my problem with the whole reinvention message. Let's continue. Here's what I think we're missing in this whole conversation about reinvention. I don't need to start by asking myself who I should become. I need to start with what I already know about myself. What matters to me now, and where might I want to make some changes? Those questions shift the focus from who I think I need to become to how I actually want to live my life. And those choices will continue to evolve as I do. That's why I don't believe I need to reinvent myself to have more freedom or more say over how I live. I already have something far more valuable to start with: the life I've lived and the woman I am today. And I'm curious how you feel about this. When you hear reinvent yourself after 50, does it feel empowering? Or does it feel like one more thing you're being told you should do? Let me know in the comments. Because I think this distinction matters more than it might seem. There can be a real cost to believing we need to reinvent ourselves. Getting clear about what you want at this stage of your life is not the same thing as reinventing yourself. You may know there are things you want to change without knowing exactly what those changes look like yet. That's where curiosity matters. You can begin with what you know about yourself today and stay open to what you may discover along the way. That's very different from starting with the belief that you need to become someone brand new. Because if I decide I need to reinvent myself, I've already made an assumption. Who I am today isn't enough to get me to where I want to go. And that assumption can influence the changes I make. Instead of starting with what I want and then deciding what I may need to change to get there, I'm actually starting with the belief that I first need to change who I am. That's the part of reinvention I'm pushing back against. There's a difference between growing from who we are and believing we need to become someone brand new before we can move forward. I don't want to dismiss what I already know about myself because I've decided some completely different version of me would be far better. I want who I am today to be my starting point. My experience, what I've learned about myself, what matters to me now. All of that gives me a stronger foundation for deciding where I want to go from here. And that's where I think the alternative to reinvention begins. So if reinvention isn't the answer, what do we do instead? We start with ourselves. And I believe there are 3 things that can help us get clearer about what we want from here. Question what you believe, listen to yourself, and decide what you want to change. Let's start with the first one. Question what you believe. By this stage of life, we've developed a lot of beliefs about ourselves and about how our lives should look. And beliefs change over time. So it's worth questioning whether what we believe about ourselves today is actually true. One of my deepest beliefs for most of my adult life has been that somehow I'm not enough. And comparing myself to people I think have more than I do can bring that belief right back to the surface. Maybe I see them as more successful or more accomplished. Whatever the comparison is, I can quickly turn it into, I'm not enough. The difference today is that I recognize it happening much sooner, and I've learned ways of keeping that old belief from taking over. That matters because if I don't question the belief, I can start making choices from it without even realizing it. And this is where it connects back to reinvention. If I'm starting from the belief that who I am now isn't enough, then changing who I am can sound like the answer. But what if the first thing that needs my attention isn't who am I? What if it's the belief telling me I need to be someone completely different? That's a very different place to start, which brings me to number 2, the importance of listening to yourself. When we're not sure about what we want, it's easy to start looking outside of ourselves for answers. And the more we look to other people for clues about what we should be doing, the more their choices for us can start influencing our own. I know what that's like because I've spent years believing other people might know better than I did what was right for me. I didn't always trust myself to know what I needed. And when you do that for long enough, you can end up making choices that make sense to everyone else, but don't necessarily make sense for you. That's why listening to ourselves matters. It means paying attention to what we're interested in now, what we're curious about, and what we may want to explore. Other people can have helpful perspectives, but they're still looking at our lives from the outside in. We're the ones who have to live with the choices we make. So listening to ourselves doesn't mean we stop listening to other people. It means we don't automatically assume they know better than we do. And the more closely we listen to ourselves, the better we can distinguish between what we genuinely want and what we think we should want, which brings me to number 3. At some point, we have to decide what we actually want to change. And this is where the line between growth and reinvention can get a little blurry. There may be things we want to change about ourselves and things we want to do very differently in our lives. But change doesn't require us to become entirely different people. That's where I think the reinvention message goes too far. To me, reinvention implies an overhaul, a fresh start, a new you, a 180 from the person you've been all along. I don't think we need to discard who we are in order to grow. We get to make the changes we choose from everything we know about ourselves today, not in spite of it. That's the difference. I'm not trying to reinvent myself. I'm deciding what I want to change and where I want to go from here. I need enough clarity to know what I want now and what I'm prepared to do about it. And from there, I can take my next right step. So how do we actually begin doing this in our own lives? I think it starts with getting clearer about where we are right now, what we believe about ourselves, the comparisons we make, and what we see other people doing can all influence what we think we want. Sometimes we need to give ourselves enough space to hear ourselves think. That doesn't have to be complicated. And if you'd like to explore this a little further, I've created the 72-hour Compass Reset for you. It's free and includes 3 short videos with reflection sheets. Just 10 minutes a day for 3 days, all designed to help you get clearer about what matters most to you right now. You'll begin to sort through what you want, what may be getting in the way, and identify your next right step. And you can start right where you are. I'd love to have you join me, and you'll find the link in the description below. And before we wrap up, I want to come back to where we started. Do I think we need to reinvent ourselves after 50? No, I don't. I believe we'll continue to change and evolve as we move through this stage of life. Our choices and our life experiences will shape us in ways we probably can't predict today. But that's very different from deciding at the outset that who we are today isn't good enough and we need to reinvent ourselves into someone brand new. That's the distinction. Reinvention asks us to start with who we think we need to become because who we are today somehow isn't enough. I'd rather start with who I already am and everything I've learned about myself and grow from there. That doesn't mean my past determines my future. It means I'm not disregarding everything I've learned along the way. So maybe this stage of life isn't about reinventing ourselves at all. Maybe it's about deciding for ourselves what we want, staying open to where those choices may take us, and allowing ourselves to evolve from who we already are. If conversations like this help you think differently about what you want in the second half of life, subscribe to Follow Your Lighthouse. There's a lot more I want us to talk about when it comes to getting older, challenging some of the messages we've been given, and figuring out what makes sense for us now. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, keep turning towards your own light. Take good care, and I'll see you soon.